Hey, can you hear me now? Cool. So, welcome. We are going to work on my personal project, the Forest Guardians, today. And I've got a couple pages that I've been working on. I worked on trying to kind of nail down a style last week. So, this week I've been working throughout the week, just here and there, on kind of tweaking some things, figuring out what direction I want to go in. So, I think I have found somewhat of a direction that I like. It'll likely adapt and change as time goes on, but yeah, so I'm going to work on that a little bit today. I'll kind of share my screen here. Um, so, this is what we're working on. This is Teague, and so this page, um, you can see this character. So, I've got a couple panels, 5 panels here. Um, and this is currently, I'm doing the Forest Guardians in a graphic novel format for now. Initially, I started that as an illustrated novel, which I know they sound pretty much the same, but there's somewhat of a difference. So yeah, this is the one of the main characters. Really, kind of the secondary character, but like the companion to the main hero character. This is a fantasy world in which it's kind of like if you think about like Narnia and Lord of the Rings. This is kind of like maybe more on the Narnia side of things as far as like lightheartedness, and there's some parts of Narnia that are not very lighthearted, but on the scale of like drama, I guess, uh, and like stakes, this is very much a more Narnia esque, not quite children's story, but it's definitely like kids can read it and follow along with it just as well as adults. And that was one of the main things that I wanted to emphasize when creating the Forest Guardians was I wanted it to be a story that both kids and adults could enjoy, because I think some of the best movies, the best media are kids media anyways, are stories that the kids love and fall in love with, but then the adults also love it. Um, so yeah, that's why I'm doing it in this format. Um, Let me know if you like the kind of setup I have here. I'm using Photoshop, and I've got my camera here so you can still see me. If you don't want to see me, let me know. But I like to talk a lot, so sorry about that. So yeah, and last week I had some problems with my streaming software OBS. It kept cutting out the feed, and so hopefully I resolved that. I did some updates and other things, so hopefully we won't run into that issue anymore. But if for any reason you see like I'm talking about something and like the screen's not doing anything, just let me know. Throw a comment down there or something. Um, but yeah, so anyways, I'm gonna get started working on the background here. So I'll kind of show you what I've done over here. Last week I was not happy with the style that I had for this frame. So I hadn't even worked on this one yet, and I was just testing out the style. Um, and you can actually see that, I think, if I show this. Yeah, so I mean, I was going for more of a painterly kind of vibe, and this is even more than I did before. I just don't think that, my sketch underneath was not well done enough or not finished enough to really like show, hey, this is the character. So I ended up going more of a line and color style. I think it works better for my art style. I have a very like line based, um, cartoony art style when it comes to like the way I sketch and the way that I get ideas down. More of a concept based um, approach, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna work on it in this way. So if you've ever seen like um, other YouTubers like Tim McBurney, I mentioned him last week. I actually downloaded some of his brushes because I love the way that he approaches like the line and color style. And I watch his videos all the time, so I kind of took some inspiration from him as far as like the actual process. And so I think I like it. Like I said, I may tweak some things, and he takes it kind of like to the extreme, which he's super talented. But I'm mainly wanting to get the ideas down because I'm not even sure. Like, I haven't even written the story out fully. And so I'm working on kind of going through and rewriting the story and getting it to a point where I'm happy with it. This is really just kind of like a test of the style and the layout and sort of approach to the process that I'll be using going forward. Um, so I'm going to be, the whole reason I'm working on this is I'm going to be at a convention next year, and I haven't really done much with my art in the past year or two. And so this will be kind of the first event that I'm doing that's leaning a little more into like the fantasy side of things. So I'm trying to, I would love to have like a couple of, issues of the Forest Guardians available, either to give out or to sell or whatever there, just to kind of see what people think about it. But all right, enough talking. I'm going to start working. If you don't understand this layer mess, I'm sorry. It's I tried to color code it, but it is what it is. So I'm gonna do background paint here, and then I'm just going to see if I can find a good color here for the trees. And again, if you'd rather me not talk, let me know. I won't be offended. Maybe a little bit. And I may still talk, who knows. But let's see, is that, yeah, it's good enough. One of the things that that guy was talking about, Tim McBurney, one of the things he does is instead of like nailing the colors on the first try, which is kind of what you have to do when you kind of have that like painterly approach, he goes in and he'll segment out kind of in a comic style all the flat colors, and then so he can always go back and adjust areas and characters and objects, excuse me, later on. So and I'm gonna be a little messy. I'm not worried too much about it. So and I'm still getting used to digital. I've done it forever, but there are elements of digital that I'm still kind of not super comfortable with. One thing I know is that I can get too tight too quickly, and so keeping it loose as long as possible really helps me personally when it comes to working digitally. Yeah, if you are a Photoshop user and you like to do like digital painting and stuff like this, check out Tim McBurney's brush set. I know he sells it with his, well, not really sells it, but he makes it available with his course. I think his course is like $35, which I paid for at some point. But yeah, it's really, a lot of the brushes that he has, he recommends from other creators who have released their brush sets. He doesn't put them in that pack just because that wouldn't be cool. But so he doesn't like say, oh, you have to use my brushes and my brushes only. Which for any non-Photoshop users out there, brushes basically just mean the settings for the brush tool in Photoshop. So you can like actually export settings, and people create custom brushes. These kind of have like a traditional comic kind of feel, mixed with some like painting and stuff. So they're cool. They're good for like concept art plus kind of more line and color stuff like this. They have a really nice texture to them, so you can see like that texture. When you go on the macro scale, you can see in like different brushes to add texture. I got a new monitor too, whether that's of any interest to anybody. It's a curved one. It's pretty nice. I got it for cheap at Walmart, but it is up here, so I kind of positioned it so I'd be looking like at the artwork rather than, you know, because I've got my streaming software up there. Anyways, I'm just gonna get kind of stuck away doing this. Let me know if you want some music in the background. There are a lot better ways to do this, to fill in these colors. Like I could go in with the lasso tool and actually like make a selection. And I don't have paint bucket. There we go. So like you could do that. I also learned from that same guy recently the anti-alias and contiguous things here, what those do. I've been using Photoshop for like probably 10-15 years and never knew what those did, so thank you for that information. It was really good. That's not what I wanted to do. Here we go. So yeah, switching between those tools really helps kind of speed things up. Not that I'm really trying to like break any world records or anything. But for someone like me whose brain kind of goes faster than my hands can keep up, it helps. And you might hear my wife in the background. She's making some kind of dessert, which I'm not upset about. She may join here in a little bit just to hang out. But yeah, so you can see, like, instead of going in here noodling away at that, it's a technical Photoshop term, by the way. You can just quickly fill in things. Yeah, so general rule of thumb that I try to stick to, but I obviously don't always do it, is work back to front. Obviously I didn't do it with the main character here, so I'm just gonna get rid of it like, or hide that layer as if I had. And just keep going. And I hate this new Photoshop feature. I can't stand it, where it puts that little taskbar after every single tool you use. Alright. So again, I'm just going to find like a generic brush, underbrush, you know, kind of thing here. Just to kind of get something down. And the beauty of this lasso tool is that when you get to portions like this where it's like you don't really have a strong idea of like where you want to kind of delineate between the line and, you know, solid color, it's easy to just kind of put in some organic shapes. And then you've got blades of grass in the background. So, and obviously I'll go in here with this and kind of fill in. But yeah. Sorry, just checking on the monitor up there. One thing that's really helpful, I've noticed with Photoshop, I'm not sure how many people care about this, but there's something called the navigator pane. And so, or just called navigator, but it just gives you this really small window that you can reference. So for like overall composition and stuff like that. And sometimes I'll just put that up on another, just like put it on the monitor above or something, and it just kind of gives me an overall look at the page. So I can see if something's working or not, or if it's competing with another element or whatever. But yeah, so Let me just keep working on this. So one of the only reasons I started streaming is because a good buddy of mine, IMAX, that's his handle on most platforms, I believe. He actually started streaming VR games. Little plug for him. Go check him out. He's super funny. I mean, I grew up with him and watching him play video games and all that stuff. But he started streaming, and I was like, oh man, this is really cool. And I enjoy watching his stuff every now and then. And so I was like, you know what? I have cameras from my video production business, and I've got, I know how to use the softwares from working at my church forever and just kind of having to do it for that, streaming and all that stuff. So I was like, why can't I just, keep me accountable to work on a project? Why can't I just break out, Photoshop once a week and just kind of sit down? And it actually really inspires me to keep working like during the week as well on these projects, which I think is really good. But yeah, go check him out. Like I said, it's IMAX or iMaximized. IMAX. I'm not gonna try to spell the rest of that while I'm trying to do something, but yeah, he's got some really cool content out there. He plays exfil zones and a couple other things. So if you like watching people stream VR games. Cool. So I'm just going to keep kind of cracking away here. Let me know if you have any questions. One of the hardest parts about working on a project like this that has so many parts and takes, just time to do, usually you're doing it in a locked off, closed environment where you're not around other people. Unless you're in college and you're working on it with your peers, it's really easy to get bogged down in like just the slog of having to crank out pages, crank out, iterations. And I know some of my best work artistically came out of maybe not my best work, but some of the work that I was most happy making came out of college, just because you're around your peers and there's ideas and there's critiques and you can bounce off of other people creatively. And so I think streaming potentially could have the same kinds of benefits. I'm not sure. Like I said, I've only been doing it for a couple weeks now, so. And I'm not trying to like become a streamer and make any money off of this. This is just me. I paint better and I have better ideas when I'm talking. And it's kind of strange to talk to yourself, even though I'm kind of doing it right now, but you're on the other side of the camera, so thank you for being there. But yeah, sometimes you got to remember like Okay, did I mean for this to be here, or did I? Yeah, I think I did mean for this to be here. Add a little greenery. Again, so I mean, I'm only streaming because honestly, I'm just trying it out. And if I like it, then I like it. If not, then no harm, no foul. But so far, I enjoy it. I guess to the extent that it holds me accountable for the most part. Let's see. Let's bring this back. Okay. Cool. So now the background. So I had this on there, but I'm not sure if I like that overall feel. But I think it'll give me a good idea to kind of go off of for what I'm actually going to do back there. Because I want it to be a little darker, but I don't want it to be like so dark because it's supposed to be like during the day. Let me take some coffee real quick. Alright, so let's just get a color and we can always change it later. I'll go for almost like a teal to start out. And I'll clean up the outside edges later. Yeah, so let's throw maybe some lighter tones and then maybe some darker variation. So this is one thing that I don't know exactly how detailed I want to get back here, like in my backgrounds for this stuff. Because I started, what drew me into art was landscape painting. Seeing my dad do it, seeing, other people just like working on like landscape paintings and all the texture and detail. And so I like the idea of putting in a lot of detail into the backgrounds. But the storyteller in me is like, what's important? This background that no one's going to see and it's just going to clutter up. Is that as important as the main character? I don't know. It could be. I don't know. And I think it can be detailed without being distracting. I'm probably not very good at that. I don't have a microphone. I'm just using the laptop microphone. So if it sounds terrible, let me know. Or if I'm clicking too much and you can't hear, let me know. Because I have microphones. I just honestly didn't want to go through the trouble of setting one up. I could also put one on the camera and pull in that audio too. So just let me know. Yeah, so I kind of like that. And again, I'm referencing this navigator window up here just to check kind of from a zoomed out perspective whether I like it or not. I think I kind of want to go a little darker, but I'm going to hold off for now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock off this layer where the trees and this kind of moss and bushes are. And I'm going to get that color back. And I'm going to just go a little darker and a little cooler. And I'm going to start putting in just some variation. Again, trying to stay zoomed out just a bit. I don't want to get bogged down in like rendering. I just want to have a little bit of a painterly touch. And apologize in advance for any faces that I make while I'm doing this. It's the curse of an artist. Again, I might be getting too much into the rendering. I think so. So I think I'll do... Yeah, I think I'll stick with that for now. Let's go back to that shadow color. And let's just hit these. Again, let me know if you have any questions. You know, why I'm choosing certain colors, why I'm, you know, doing things a certain way. I'd be happy to try to answer them anyways. As best I can. So this file might be lagging a little bit. It's getting a little large. Plus streaming and all that too. I thought about getting a, not anytime soon, but a Wacom tablet. When I thought I was going to be a concept artist back in the day, which I think every young artist thought they were going to be a concept artist. And in a way, I kind of am for my own projects, but I really thought, man, I need a Wacom. But I actually enjoy like the pen and tablet, like looking at a screen and then drawing down here. So I don't know. I mean, I had a Huion tablet, like a display tablet, for a while, and I thought that was cool, but I just don't think the technology was there at the time, because that was probably 8 years ago, 9 years ago that I got that, and technology has just come really far. So you may be like thinking to yourself, man, those two panels look like way different from each other. You may not be thinking that whatsoever, but there are some post-processing, editing, overall composition things that I'm going to do to each frame once I kind of get all the colors in. So that's why I'm kind of not really focused on kind of matching these up exactly, because that will come. All right, so we've got that down. I may just hit a couple little swatches here. Go a little cooler with this green, a little more saturated for the shadows. And again, just from like a distance, I don't really want to get too close up on it. Again, this document is lagging. There we go. Have to maybe see if I can make this document a bit smaller. Man, that really is lagging. Okay. Come on. So just want to darken up a little bit. And at this point, I don't really mind too much if some of this like green gets onto the tree, because like I said, I want to find like kind of a bridge between painterly and you know, this line and color style. So like adding in colors where, hey, maybe like this side of the tree's got more green on it. Just to kind of break up and communicate like, hey, this is a old growth forest and all the trees are just kind of green, especially this one back here, kind of showing, hey, this one's maybe been down a bit longer and it's kind of pushed back into the background. It's actually, yeah. Let's go back to that green we had. Again, just a few little things, and I don't want to make it too strong around this area because this is where you're going to be reading. I just want a few little hints of it here and there. Kind of more towards the bottom too, I guess. Cool. So again, just a little bit of a difference there. All right. I'm gonna keep filling in my rocks here and this grass in the foreground, or middle ground rather. So let's actually go right above this layer that we're currently on, and we'll do we'll just call it MG for midground. I normally don't name my layers because I'm a chaos gremlin when it comes to organization. Alright, let me see if I can shut down some other programs on my laptop just to see if we can get a little speed back. I don't think I need Google Chrome anymore. Don't want to quit that one. Alright, let's see if that helped a little. There's nothing worse than trying to make art and it's like just a second or like half a second behind you, which might be what's happening here. Switch to this, see if it's any better. Again, I want to be a little neat with this, but I don't have to be crazy. Mainly just want to like separate out what's in the background versus what's kind of in this middle ground area. Cool. So we can kind of start to see how this all comes together, more or less. Cool. Alright, so let's grab this color. Actually, I'm gonna want that there. Kind of a sandy brown. Kind of crazy, it's already been 45 minutes. Does not feel like it. So that's just kind of like a step down in elevation there. So, all right, let's go a little lighter with this green and a little warmer. Maybe a little more saturated too. Again, I cannot stand this little bar here. I'm usually too lazy to turn it off. Again, apologies for my concentration face and my quietness. Some of this stuff you kind of have to think about. Most of it's mindless. But sometimes you gotta like put in that extra brain cell. Again, we're not too worried about sticking to the exact like line here as long as we're pretty close to it. So again, the actual size of this is going to be, you know, pretty small. So I'm not trying to be too crazy detailed. Again, kind of checking this navigator window that I have up here. Kind of pull it down so you can see like this is what I'm looking at on the other screen. That just gives me an idea of like how important is each element that I'm working on. And if I don't really see it zoomed out that much, then I'm not going to worry about it too much. So, all right, let's throw in a little bit more of this in the background. Right behind this, I think. Cool. So that'll help that stand out a little bit too. And then we'll switch back to this, and then we'll kind of blend those elements together. And a lot of this is going to be a little loose just because we're dealing with like, you know, grass going into water, you know. So we'll probably get a little bit more painterly with it here up close. But for now, we just want to have like a subtle gradient. Yeah. Throw some of this color over here. And just a little bit. We can even throw a little bit of that up here too. Just kind of help it tie it all together. Cool. Fairly happy with that so far. We'll make some changes to it, of course, but so this is where the water line kind of comes in. So I don't want to get too caught up in that yet. And I'll throw some more of this kind of in there too. Kind of a bigger brush. Start to think about that. You know, kind of communicating with color. What we didn't communicate with line is that there is a change happening here. And we'll just kind of start throwing this down as a base. much. There we go. Alright, so now let's hit this other side real quick. Again, just kind of in the areas where it doesn't really matter too much. We're just going to throw in color. And we'll worry about kind of some more details later. Cool. So overall, kind of putting in that background a little more. I'm working a little slow too, just because I'm thinking about streaming and talking and doing things, but I also am just not super duper fast. Alright, I want to show the taskbar. I do not like the taskbar. Drop in a couple of rocks. And these I want to make a little more gray. Keep them warm though, I think. Yeah. I think that looks good. Everything else is pretty warm, so we don't want to mess it up too much. Introducing too many different colors. I think if I hit contiguous, it'll help. I'm not sure. Oh, it's the tolerance thing. There we go. Yeah, again, learning those little things about anti-alias and contiguous. It's those things that help kind of improve little by little. If you like this kind of stuff, I recommend watching Tim McBurney on YouTube. I think he's on like Instagram and does stuff on there too, but it's the Drawing Codex or Tim McBurney. You can look up either one of those. I watch his stuff all the time. He's one of my favorite line and color artists, YouTubers. Nowadays, I don't know if you can be an artist without also being a content creator. Because, I mean, in essence, as artists, we create content. Maybe not for social media, but we do create content for social consumption to some degree or another. I think that's why I always struggle with it too, as far as social media goes. It's real easy just to kind of be in your own bubble and make what you want, but to think about, oh, is this going to resonate with, somebody else that is going to be looking at it? And it's like, do I care if it resonates with anybody else? Kind of. I'm not super self-absorbed, I think, but I do like people to appreciate what I do. Yeah. So up here, since all these colors are kind of blending together, and I don't want to take away too much focus from the character in the panel, I'm going to hit these kind of lightly and let everything start to blend, especially because these up front are supposed to be kind of underwater. So that one I'll be a little more careful with. So like these are above right here that are more detailed. But then like these that are kind of just a couple lines, they're just kind of under the surface. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, let me know. Especially if I know you. If I don't know you, introduce yourself. I'd like to know you. Again, not getting too detailed in this, just want to throw out. Yeah, and I think with some gradients and some other things over top of that, I think it'll kind of start to come together. So he's supposed to be running, like starting to run, like tread through the water, because his buddy just jumped from a cliff. So, thinking about how do I want to translate that? Like, do I want to have a couple splashes? Because in the frame before, I kind of just did this like shape for the water. I don't know if I love it, but it definitely, I mean, it gets the idea across that, like, hey, it's water. So I really could, I mean, I have a couple little shapes here that I could do that with. So let me just pull kind of that color. And I'll go foreground here. And I'll just make it more of a graphic shape. Yeah. I think frame to frame, it's like from frame 1 to frame 2, it translates because it's the same color. So I don't know if it necessarily matters if it's like rendered or anything like that. Yeah. I think I may just do a couple, maybe just amorphous shapes. Yeah, I think that'll. Yeah, and then let's go back here. Yeah. So now I'm just putting back in the line. So one of the things I'm probably least confident on this tablet is inking. As you can see, my lines are usually not as smooth as if I'd done them traditionally. And so it usually results in it taking a try or two. And to be honest, if it's not entirely perfect, I don't care too much. I don't mind going over something once or twice. Especially when it's a personal project. If I was doing this for a client, I think I'd recommend, like, hey, my strength is, you know, maybe digital after, inking and all that stuff. But to kind of figure out style and all this stuff, and I'd really like to do this whole thing digital. So part of me doing this is actually practicing my digital style. So I like it. I think before I go into the next step, I'm going to do a couple overall corrections. And so I'll just go in with the mouse here. And we'll play around. Basically trying to make these two frames look kind of identical as far as the effects and colors and whatnot. So basically I'm just going to go down here to the files for the first frame, see what all I did. So I threw this gradient on it. So I'll go ahead and copy that. I'm actually just going to copy, I think that's a hard light layer for shadows. So let me copy that. And paste. Let's do those over top, clipping it on. Yes, I mean, you could see kind of it's doing something. Okay, let's play around a little bit. So this is a selective color layer. And so basically over here on this panel you can see you can slide to make the yellows more cool, less cool. So we want to kind of make them a little less cool, not quite vibrant yellow, obviously. But let's slide it just slightly warm. And then we had added a bit more magenta. So again, I'm looking between the two layers, referencing that navigator pane as well. So far we're looking okay. Kind of throwing some more yellow into it. Not much, I don't think. So let's go. There's not a whole lot of blues in here, but there are some. Okay, that's why that wasn't working. I was wondering. Okay, I want that in there. There we go. Had to put it back in the folder for the group. Cool, okay. So let's go back to, that's frame 1, this is frame 2, so let's go selective color. There we go, now we can affect those blues. Again, not really doing much there. I think it's more of maybe leave the blues alone then, or cyans. Let's go blues. As you can see in his tongue there, it's making a few changes. Let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. Now you can see a little bit better. So again, selective layer, selective color rather. Let's go reds. just because I know we're gonna probably boost up. Yeah, so you can see kind of what that's doing. Kind of want to go hard on the yellows and then maybe just barely throw some magenta in there. We don't want to do that. It's going to look dead if we put too much cyan. So let's take a little bit of cyan out actually. So so you can see the difference in the color now. So we want to make sure we're not getting too far away. Honestly, I think this is probably looking better because there's more contrast and it's more of a red-green subtle contrast right now. And so I think I'm actually going to change this one to match a little bit more. There we go. So let's pull that cyan down on there. So we're on the reds. I'm going to throw that magenta back in there. So that yellow is not bad, but I think just when you mix the two, obviously you're getting kind of more of an orange. Yep. Okay. I think that matches better. So one of the things now you could see is that we're definitely more saturated here in the trees in the background. And you can see versus like up here in the cliff face, we're way less saturated. So we kind of want to desaturate these trees just a bit. And I think the way we can do that is we could either select the layer that the trees are on and actually desaturate it, which might be better than trying to be selective about overall changes. So yeah, there's the tree layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an adjustment layer, and we're going to go hue saturation. And you could do any number of these layers. Levels would work, brightness contrast would work, color balance would work. But this one will just kind of let us target because we know specifically what we want to do with the saturation. And it's taking a minute. That's alright. Reminds me to take a coffee break. This is a relatively new MacBook Pro, but when you get in these large Photoshop files, it doesn't really matter what you have. It's just like processing, which I may need to check my settings in Photoshop and see how much. Let me go to edit. Image processing. There we go. So I don't know if that did anything, but that's alright. Alright, so here we can see saturation. So we're going to be affecting everything unless we clip it. So we can drag that down, kind of match it a little better. could actually bring the lightness up slightly too, if we don't want to lose. We don't want to make it dark, right? We just want to desaturate it. And really, I think maybe it was just too dark. I think the level of saturation was actually pretty good. I think our color was just actually too dark. See, like you could see like when we lighten it, the saturation's fine. And a lot of it's just playing around. You know, we do want it to be darker because it's framing up the background. You know, framing our character. But we also don't want it to be a focal point necessarily. Okay, I think that's better. It could still be a little lighter to match this. But again, they're different materials. You know, these are going to be more direct shadow, so I think it's good for now. I'm pretty happy with this so far. I think now we'll throw on just we have this hard light layer. And so what I'm going to do is delete that. Oh, that also could have been... Oh, sorry. No, that was the wrong layer. Just kidding. Was I doing the right? I'm confused now. Where did I put that? There we are. That's the saturation layer. So let's go to this hard light layer. That's right. Okay, yeah, so now you can see this is, if we have a hard light, this is going to give us our shadows. So this is what our shadows are going to look like. So what we want to do is mask out, and then we want to fill that with black. That way, whatever we paint in white is going to end up being shadow. Just like that. So we'll just play around a little bit. Again, we don't want to go too crazy with shadows. Just because you know, with the style that I'm going for. We want it to be a little lighter overall. At least for now. I may change my mind. We may do something a little crazier later, but and again, this is just black. So if after the fact we wanted to go in and actually like change this color, we could go in with like a purple, like a really dark purple, and we could fill the whole layer with purple, and it would just change the tone. But for now, we're going to keep it black, just because it'll give us a good starting point. So go back to that mask layer. And this is a hard light layer. So when we paint yeah, like it, if we go like a lighter color on the main layer too, it would actually give us because it's got a mask on it. But if the mask wasn't, it would actually lighten it. So anyways, not important. we do want to fill that back in now because there we go. All right. Again, just making some general large adjustments. Photoshop file slowing down a bit. Again, I don't want to get too like detailed with the rendering. Just kind of want some overall tonality things to paint the picture. No pun intended. Yeah, so you can see kind of what it's doing. Again, trying to reference up above. And the color accuracy, I'm not sure how close it's coming out on that end for the stream, but what I'm seeing here is probably a little different. What you're seeing might be a little more yellowed. But anyways, continuing on here, just throwing in some shadow. Can paint it back out. Trying to think about where the sun direction and the light would be hitting. Soften some things up. And go bigger brush to soften. Again, don't want to get too caught up in all this. But this is also where we can use like selection tools in combination. And then you can go in. And then we can paint back out. So yeah, just real subtle. Nothing crazy. For those of you just joining, working on a personal project of mine called The Forest Guardians. I've been working on it for a couple years, and it's changed mediums. It went from an illustrated novel to a graphic novel format. Sounds the same, but they're different. So yeah, I'm just working on kind of nailing down a style for the actual artwork. And yeah, I think we're landing on kind of a line and color style rather than like a painted, rendered out thing. But again, just laying in shadows here, trying to get an idea for kind of how rendered I want everything to be. So I don't know how much more I want to like actually detail out. I think just a little bit of shadow goes a long way. Just kind of like the obvious shadow that would be there. I don't want to have too many competing elements. And really all it is just subtle like value shifts that help that communication. But so like I may do some more just on elements like this. Again, you can't even really tell too much. Maybe some in the background. I don't know. Again, I don't want to get too contrasted in the background. Just in areas maybe where it helps read the character a little better. Just like that. Maybe a little bit here just to emphasize some of their shadows. Yeah. And then maybe just some overall shifts in value up close. Nothing crazy. Just a little here and there. Yeah. Cool. So I think that's frame down for now. Pretty happy with that. All right, laptop's starting to slow down a bit, so I might call it early here, but pretty happy with how that's going so far. I think I'm going to stick with this style, so I'll work on it throughout the week, and then maybe we'll come back around to it next week. If I am able to stream next week, I will. Let me cut this over here. Okay. Thank you for watching. We've had a few people on and off, but again, this is, I appreciate people watching and commenting and doing all that, but really I'm doing this for accountability. So if you're watching, maybe some encouragement, just to keep going, tell me honestly feedback on what you like, what you don't like, as far as the art and characters and all of that stuff goes. I really do appreciate that feedback, and it really does go a long way to encouraging me, whether it's positive or, just some constructive criticism. And let me know if you have any feedback on how I could go about streaming better or adding more interesting elements into it. If there are particular questions you want me to answer while I'm doing this, so I'm not just spewing nonsense, I'd be happy to do so as I'm thinking through and working on the art that I'm doing for this project. And I've got other projects too that I'm working on. I'll tease one here for you. Let me open it up. If I can find it. Give me a second. There's thrilling content. Thrilling content. Where did I save that? There it is. So I'm working on a trading card game in my spare time, which I don't have a whole lot of, but might not be a smart idea to open this file with. Yeah. So, anyways, I'm working on a trading card game, and it's in the infant stages so far. This is probably one of my favorite cards that I've made so far. I'm just in that sketching process right now, just playing around with different ideas, playing around with different abilities, different rule sets and all that stuff. And I'm just using goblins as kind of the first test subject here. But I think it really leans into my style a little bit, and I like having fun with different things. So some are working better than others. This one not super content with yet, but um, you know these are fun ideas, and the names are fun and all that stuff. So I don't even know what this is, but it's a little terrifying to me. But yeah, again, this is my favorite card. So maybe I'll work on this next week as well. Like I said, I've got about 6 projects going at any one time that I'm working on. And it helps me to have accountability. So I appreciate you for watching. But yeah, this is where we ended up. So again, thank you for watching, and I will maybe post this video to my YouTube channel as just like a standalone thing as well. But the live video will be there regardless. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and